Wake up! I'm Shaggy Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel. And here today on coffee number 5, we're looking at a specialty bean from El Salvador, the Cuzcachapa region of El Salvador. So we're going to pour this coffee that I just brewed, that I roasted a couple weeks ago from unroasted beans that are in this bag right here. And we'll taste it in a little bit when it cools off some. But I want to show you, as my usual practices, I want to show you this thing on a map. So here's the Coffee Obsession book that I've been showing and using. And this is their map of El Salvador. And the place where this comes from is a little region over here that's not really listed. So this lake, this volcanic Santa Ana Lake, and the little town of Santa Ana are the reference points here. But I really had to go to Google Maps and it'll really blow it up to find this spot. So I hope this can show just as easily. But here's the round lake, here's a volcano, here's the town of Santa Ana, but you have to go further west to find the spot where the cooperative that produces this coffee is located. So it seems to be on the north side of this growing region, this mountainous region. And they are an interesting cooperative that I'll mention a little bit later. But first I want to get into some tasting notes while the coffee's still warm. So this was one of the specialty beans that I get from Smokin Beans. It's kind of earthy. I'm not sure it's chocolate. But you can tell by the 5-pound bag that this is in their wholesale line. So it's on the order of $4 a pound to buy this size bag. So it sure is cheaper than grocery stores. But these are unroasted beans. So yeah, it's still pretty warm, but on the palate I'm getting a fruitiness. It's not sweet at all. So fruitiness, I'd say plum again. Plum. I've been saying plum every time. Red plum, black plum. Maybe an earthiness, herbal note. Hay, grass, straw, stems. Something with a touch of woodiness to it. It's green. It's green. It's herbal. It's got that torn up leaf smell. Wow, this is going down fast. So taking it apart, in my mind, it doesn't have a lot of coffee notes that a lot of people would recognize. So we'll let it cool off. So if you like the videos you've been seeing here about coffee and other things, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Click that bell to get notified. Leave some comments down below. Leave a question. After we finish our little tasting here, with and without cream, we're gonna move on to my automatic drip procedure, how I brew my coffee every day. So I'll have a little B-roll in the kitchen to show you the daily process. So I just made this in my automatic drip coffee maker. Same way I do every day to take my stuff to work. And I'm thinking this particular batch of the beans that I roasted may have gone 10, 15, 20 seconds longer than I intended and got just a shade darker. Because there's less sweetness than I was thinking there would be. I've had this before. Less sweetness and a little more earthiness, a little more chocolatey note, I guess is the best description. The dark notes in there, it's hard to dissect it out. Part of it's fruity and plummy, and then part of it's this earthy, chocolatey thing. It tastes different at different temperatures. So it might be confusing to hear it being mention all the notes as you go through the whole video. But it's probably not me changing that much. It's probably the coffee changing temperature fairly drastically. From the brewing temperature, this is probably 180 to 190. In this thermal graph, it doesn't drop very fast. But when I pour it out here, it drops pretty fast. So this is like 120, 130 right now. Barely over body temperature. Boy, but it's good. I want some more. It is quite a trip. So I don't get a lot of brightness or acidity. When it's hot or when it's cold. And the label does say notes like that. It says cinnamon, citrus, stone fruits. The stone fruits, yes. The citrus, they might be implying acidity. It might be too dark of a roast for that to appear. You may have to roast it a little lighter to get that acidity and citrus note. And also, don't get the cinnamon. I don't get a spiciness or a... I guess that's probably what they're shooting for. Maybe a tree bark could be all sorts of herbal things that people might interpret differently. So this is good, straightforward. No particular note really stands out. Nothing could be offensive about it. It's just tasty coffee. Yeah, there is a little acidity or a little brightness as it's cooled off here. And I taste more of it, and it's all over my tongue and mouth more and more. It's good to get it around all over the surfaces in your mouth and tongue. And there is a nice earthiness to it, a nice fruitiness. There is a brightness in the middle temperature range. Can be some of the acidity I haven't driven out. You can get lots of sweetness and fruity notes and bright acidity in a lot of regions, coffee beans. And the darker you roast it, the more those things are driven out. So if you make it too dark, you don't get sweetness. You don't get the fruitiness. You don't get the acidity and brightness. All that's converted to dark things. It just takes like chocolate and earthiness. Or tar and ash, depending on how far you go. So I've been doing my beans really light for quite a while, and I've just been experimenting with going darker, and it doesn't take much to go darker. 30 seconds might be too much. So that's probably what isn't exactly the roast I was shooting for, but you can probably roast it a little less and get citrus and cinnamon and stone fruits like they say. Or you can just go dark and make it like an espresso sort of thing. And pretty cheap espresso beans, I would say. Although people may not recommend this one for that. So, I'm enjoying this. This would be a good thing to sip on all morning long. To do the whole pot. So just to remind you, every time when I'm tasting one of these coffees here, as the main focus of the video, I have weighed out my coffee beans. I've weighed out my water to the nearest gram, using about a 16:1 ratio, and I don't vary from that very much. I might put in 48, 49 grams of beans, depending on how dark the roast is, what my perception of the taste is, because I'm sure I've had it before, and have a preference: darker, lighter, stronger, weaker. And then I wash out the paper filter with hot water before I make the coffee. And I used to laugh at that when people said they did that in the videos, and then I did a little test and decided, yeah, I'm going to wash it out too when I'm doing a careful tasting. And that might be the next topic after I do pour over. So the two things that use paper filters are the automatic drip and pour over. I guess I can mention now that you don't have to have a paper filter. I'm sure people have seen these metal mesh filters that let you avoid the use of the paper filter, but you get a muddier coffee with more sediment in it. This is almost transparent. You can see through it. There's a slight haze, but when you make it with this, oh man, it's muddy. You can't see through it. And it tastes that way. It coats your mouth in certain ways. It makes it harder to taste the coffee clearly. So I prefer it with the paper filter. And now I've been taught to rinse with water to get rid of the paper taste. But if you don't mind the muddiness, you don't mind the opacity of the coffee that comes out of this thing, this is fine, and you don't have to go through all the hassle of the paper. So all that was a diversion from my previous rambling that was about the next topic's going to be pour over, which is the kind of same process but not automated by a machine. You have to do every step yourself. And then I think I'm going to do the filter rinsing episode where I taste the water that's been rinsed out of the filters to see, is it papery or is it not papery? Would it interfere with testing or not? So, this coffee is delicious. I am going to do one more where I add cream to it. And as I've said so often, I don't usually add cream in my daily life, but I enjoy it once in a while. So on these videos, I like adding too much cream and seeing how the flavor changes. I'm finding it's been making everything into a caramely, chocolatey treat, more desserty. Wow. So yeah, it smells chocolatey, smells slightly caramely. The sugars and the beans may have been converted by my roasting level into something else, and the sweetness is gone from that, but the cream, I'm using half and half here, so the milk and cream are carrying in some lactose, which really is a sugar. So there really is a sugary sweetness to it. That I can identify. So the dairy notes and the coffee notes just blend very well into this caramely, chocolatey, slightly chocolatey, wonderful desserty thing. So I could easily be convinced to go back to adding cream to my coffee, but I'm trying to reduce fat in my diet, and I don't want to do this every day, so I'm doing it once a week now. But that is just delicious. Wow. You would think the roast is not too dark this way for sure. So the cream works very well with this El Salvador. What's the name of that region again? Let me go over some of the details about the beans here. Cuzcachapa is the region it's from, and Cuzcachapa Cooperative is the organization that sells to Smokin beans. So these are all pretty much from 1,200 meters. Only variety is Bourbon. It is a fully washed process, and it comes from the Cuzcachapa Cooperative. And I got a few facts from that cooperative here. They are the organization that hosts the Cup of Excellence annual competition every year, which George Howell has mentioned in his videos that I like seeing, and this is the place that hosts it. I guess it's a central location that a lot of people can get to. So it's just a way for growers to show off some of their best products. Another thing that this cooperative does is it has some portable mills that can be moved around from plantation to plantation. So the smaller coffee plantations can get their cherries milled, take the pulp off, and get down to the bean with portable equipment. So it's a lot cheaper. Takes a lot less fuel to move the gear around once than to move all the coffee cherries to a mill. And then the stripped off pulp is still at the coffee plantation, so they can use it for fertilizer, composting, or whatever. So that's one of the interesting things that this cooperative does. And then they do all sorts of social things. Of course, they provide jobs on the coffee plantations, but they offer medical care to its farm employees, which is not something U.S. farm companies seem to do much. And breakfast plans for low-income students, and donations to elder care homes, and all the other things that they like to say they do. So the cooperative stories are turning out to be fairly interesting to a coffee geek like me. So of course the culture is different in each country and region, and the cooperatives provide different levels of services to the growers and the communities that they're in, but it's just interesting to hear what they do. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, wasn't sure if I wanted to or not, but just in the last month or so, there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal. It was kind of a history of coffee, or an economic history of coffee, and how it's shaped so much of the world in the last 500 years. And I just, geeky me, thought it was pretty interesting. So I will have a link to that article down below. They published a couple of pictures in that article, and I printed them out so I could show them to you here. But here's one. So this is how they used to advertise coffee. So this is all in French. It's European advertising for a Brazilian product. That's the right interpretation. And then this one, also interesting, and looks like a German location, Cafe Plendel. And gives all the details about what they do. Anyway, I just thought the advertising things were interesting. I put them up here, except it's already a big mess. So I'll move on to my coffee brewing method using my automatic drip coffee maker, which is an OXO Barista Brain, which I chose 3.5 years ago. Just from looking at a couple of products, I pounced. And actually, I found a couple of recent reviews that praised it pretty highly, so I'll include links to those down below also, so you can get the same kind of results at home that I'm getting here, which I am very happy with, and it's been sturdy and has worked well for almost 4 years. So let's move on to those. So let's move on to that video clip, and I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so today I'm going to show you how I do my pretty much daily automatic drip coffee making using my OXO auto drip coffee maker and my Capresso grinder. And this coffee maker has a thermal carafe. There's not a burner, so there's no heating after the water gets hot. But we're not starting here. We're going to start by weighing out some of the ingredients over here on this side. So let's turn around and look at the scale. Make sure the scale is on grams and tared. So we're going to zero the scale. I want to weigh out 48, 49. This is really rich. Okay, yeah, I want 49 grams of this stuff. $48, 51. Pull a couple grams out. Oh, these beans are so beautiful. Gram short, drop in 3 more. There we go, 1/49. Oh, these smell so good. Okay, so the coffee's going in over here by the grinder, and now we're going to put an empty cup on here and weigh out 784 grams of water. So that's a ratio of 1 to 16. 16 grams of water for every gram of coffee. And I know it's near the top of this line at the top is usually what I go by when I'm dumping it in. In the morning I don't weigh the water. 61, 72, 85, close enough, 785, target was 784, there's the water. Oh, the other thing that I do when I'm doing careful tasting is to rinse out the paper filter with hot water, and this is how I make hot water of the right temperature. I pour it into this for pouring. Precision pouring all over the paper filter, but this is how I heat it. I don't throw this in the burner. Okay, now water in the electric kettle is rip-roaring, boiling. You can shut off now, or it jumps out. Oh. Maybe I should have paid attention to the max line. Oh. Okay, there we go. That's just for rinsing the paper filter to get rid of the paper filter taste. So now here we are, ready to put things together. So I've weighed out the water and I can pour that in. So there's a couple grams extra beyond my 784, and they're probably still in here. So I probably did get 784 into there. Now the next thing is the filter basket goes in, and then the filter paper. I always fold this to get a much smoother, uncomplicated fit into the filter basket. So I've got two folds along those edges. And then it goes into the filter basket. And then I'm going to use this Howell pourer, precision pourer, to rinse the filter with hot water. This is the same as boiling coffee. Boiling water for coffee, temperature 200, 205, something along there. So it will get rid of the paper taste. I used to chuckle at this when people did this, but then I did a little test and found out it tastes like paper. So that's what we're getting rid of there. So it's going to rinse the paper filter and preheat the carafe. So that's a good thing. It is rushing through the filter basket very quickly. And pretty much done, gone, dripped. It's all in there. I'm going to do another little rinse. So that all the surface area gets wet, and let that run in. Next thing, I've got my Capresso burr grinder set somewhere between medium and coarse, which is where I always put it. And then I dump in all the beans and grind them all into this little reservoir. Oh, but I did not plug it in. I was doing other stuff. I will now plug it in and we'll get lots of noise. Okay, grinding is complete. And I'm going to take the papery tasting water in the carafe and dump it out. Carafe is now preheated. I dump out the papery water and give it a little rinse to get rid of that taste. And now I'm pouring this into the wet basket, wet filter. I'm leveling out the top, and yeah, it's ready to go. So, right amount of coffee and a rinsed paper filter, right amount of water, and I'm pressing the button to go. This has a smaller batch setting, higher batch setting, and I've got it on the high batch. So now we just wait for it to work. You can see that the water gets heated down below that vertical tube, and it sprays a little bit in at the beginning just to wet all the grounds. And it gives it a little time to wet the grounds. You can see it's starting to go up there. It wets the grounds and waits a little while, and then it puts the rest of the water in 2 or 3 sessions. So the coffee has quit dripping. The timer's gone to 2 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take some. There's a little bit of water in that tube, hot water. So you can dump it out in something else if you don't want your coffee diluted, but I don't really care at this point. I just want to drink something hot. So there's my daily coffee routine. Oh wow, it smells amazing. It tastes pretty good, but most of the taste comes later when I let it cool off a little bit. So that's my automatic drip routine, which turns out wonderful. Okay, so that couldn't have been too exciting. It's just a guy making coffee in an automatic drip coffee maker. But that's what I do every day. I don't take the same thing 2 days in a row. And I have coffee friends at work that enjoy it too. So next time we'll be looking at a coffee from Honduras, and we'll be doing a pour over coffee brewing method as the topic. So it's pretty much like what you saw today, but it's all done manually. And there are a couple different kinds of gear that I have to do it with. And I guess I'll go through both of those. Let me remind you to like the video, leave a comment, leave a question, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified when the new videos come out on Mondays. So that should do it for now. So come back for next time.